Hey, Pete.
Hey, Kat. Welcome back.
Welcome back to Melbourne.
Yeah, nice day, actually.
I've rolled out the golf course for you. What do you think?
I'm amazed, actually. We've got putters and everything, so I need to go practice my swing and warm up a little bit, I think.
I think you should. It's good to be in Melbourne because obviously a couple of weeks ago we had the fabulous World Forum event in Sydney. And I don't know about you, but I'm still kind of buzzing just from hearing all our fabulous customer stories and seeing them all thrive on stage.
Yeah, we just finished our Fed Forum yesterday as well, so it's been a buzz across the two big capital cities.
So much happening. One of the things that really stuck out for me at World Forum was something that you talked about in the keynote for the exec circle. And this was a bit of a buzz in the breakouts with a lot of the customers. And you talked about how there's a series of mindset shifts that are happening in the market, Fore in particular. So I thought maybe today on this beautiful golf course,
on this stunning green, in the backdrop, putters,
that maybe we could dive into what those 4 mindset shifts are. How's that sound?
Sounds like a great plan, actually. Looking forward to it.
So let me see if I can remember them. Luckily, I have my notes.
Correct.
First one you touched on was this shift that's happening from organizations being externally focused to being employee focused. And what you talked about was, 10 years ago, everyone was talking about customer first, customer focus, customer centricity. They kind of forgot the employee in that story. And so employees were left with, 18, 19 applications. They became the sticky tape for the organization that tried to make everything work. And the reality is they probably weren't delivering on service to the customer. And so there seems to be this mindset shift that if we take care of employees first, they will take care of our customers.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And a lot of conversations we're having with our customers is very much that shift. It's a bit like we digitized the IVR from 10 to 15 years ago. We had a CIO in recently who downloaded all the employee apps. It took up 2 iPhone screens.
Ouch.
Correct. So that's why I call it the digital IVR of what we've created. So we've digitized businesses in each of the verticals. And we've given everyone a nice app, but we really haven't changed the way we work. And we're still asking people to switch between where do I go to find information in the organization, which is really just taking away from them delivering quality services in those moments that really matter for people.
In one of my past lives, I actually spent quite a bit of time with a group of sales and service bankers, and they walked me through how they went about their day. So when a customer called up, what they had to do just to handle that phone call. Yeah. And the amount of tab flicking they were doing, the copying and pasting into a notes, just into Apple Notes to then copy and paste it into another system. And you just see, just sitting next to them for one day, the anxiety, the frustration, I was ready to throw a computer out the window. So you can only imagine the level of frustration that's been causing employees for them to then get on the phone with a smile on their face and, happiness in their voice to give the customers the great experience. It's almost setting them up for failure.
Yeah, and I think it's even harder for the people in the front line, because they're trying to do it in real time. Like at least at a call center, you're your gap between you and the phone. But I think for the people in the front line, that experience is even further broken and disconnected because they're spending time having to go back into those apps while they're trying to have a face-to-face conversation like you and I are right here and now.
So this shift that's happening to being employee focused, what are you seeing customers start with?
So what I'm really seeing is they're going, okay, we've got to put our employees back at the center of the conversation and go, how do I make it as simple for them to find the information that they need to service the customer? So really what that's looking at is, it's a bit like, how do I create the ChatGPT experience for employees in the future? If we think about portals, we'll probably, and the sort of web pages with all the little icons on it, they will disappear in the next 3 to 5 years. So if we have that mindset shift about how we're going to make it easier for employees and we're going to have these enterprise capabilities, I think that's when we start to think, actually, how are we going to make it easier for our employees overall?
And I know at ServiceNow, this has been a big focus for us over the last 2 to 3 years, is how we can just remove friction for people. And, some of the numbers are staggering. I think it was something like 1.2 million employee hours of productivity unlocked just by creating that one-stop shop across corporate services. Do you want to talk a little bit around, I don't want to call it the now on now story, but it is drinking our own champagne, which is our favorite activity.
Well, we do like drinking champagne. Didn't bring any on the golf course.
Maybe a little bit too much.
Not on the golf course today. So I think what we're seeing from customers is they're going, actually, you got to blend a few things here now, which is to go, well, how am I going to take advantage of AI and this capability in the future to really simplify that experience for our employees, and what is that going to look like? And what we are pushing now, even from our now on now story, is to go, actually, can we get to a sort of zero help desk that's fully functioning by AI? And can we do that by the end of the year? So how do you set these bold targets and go, actually, because that's going to unlock huge amounts of productivity. We had a customer at World Forum talk about their sort of implementation of generative AI and how it's saving their agents, but they're saving like 10 FTEs worth of effort over a year now.
That's incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah, a huge amount. So what else have you seen, though, Kat, in this space?
I think a lot of it is just removing complexity and simplifying that experience. We still deal with a lot of organizations that will have 7 or 8 different employee portals, and the employee needs to know where to go to get the answer they're looking for. And sometimes it's obvious, if you've got a problem with your computer, you go to IT. If you've got a problem with your your job role, you go to HR. I still, at my age, at my old age, I still don't know when to go to procurement versus finance versus payroll and all those financial type, challenges that we face. I have no idea where to go for that stuff. Yeah. So even organizations just sitting back and going, hey, let's just give them that one screen, that one place to go to. Yeah. They don't need to know who needs to answer this question. Even just taking away that complexity prevents them from spending half an hour trawling through websites and articles to try and find who they need to go for.
Yeah, and that's why you're going to end up with this sort of, it's not going to be a portal. It'll just be the sort of chat experience. So you'll have a chat experience with the enterprise, and you'll just go, I need to get access to my payroll, or I've got a question about procurement, and it will direct you where you need to go. And I think that for me is really exciting, because it's still, today you still turn up to portals and you still have to go, where am I going? And most portals are designed about organization hierarchy, not about people journey. And I think for something like ServiceNow, it's one thing we've done really well is to actually design around it based around a persona, but also around the journey you have within the organization. So you're not having to think about the hierarchy or the organization structure in getting work done.
I've got to say though, even though it all makes sense and it's entirely logical, it's still so uncomfortable to think about not thinking of customer first. And the way I explain it to people, it's like when you're sitting on an airplane, you've got your kids sitting next to you and they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. Logically, that makes a lot of sense. But as a parent, you sit there going, hell no. Organizations need to think like that. You've got to put your oxygen mask on first so that you can take care of your customers. And for me, the oxygen mask is making it quick and easy for people to do their jobs.
Yeah, love that analogy. It's a great topic.
Right. Second mindset shift.
Second one.
We've done one. Tick. Second one.
Okay.
From cost to capacity. Talk me through it.
Cost to capacity. Actually, we were having this conversation yesterday at Fed Forum, actually, with a customer. And it sort of comes in 2 parts, I think. One is a little bit, organizations still burdened with poor technology practices. That's tying them up, like we were just talking about in the first topic. But the second part is actually, how am I going to, there's no organization that I know that says I've got all the people to do all the work that I possibly need. All right. And so the conversation we're having at the moment is going, actually, if I could give them a new set of digital skills, which I think is completely possible, they've got great organizational awareness. They know they've got history and understanding of the organization. Now we give them ability to solve problems. We can start to get to some of the untapped problems that we weren't able to do because we're sort of untying them from that complexity. So everybody wants to create capacity. Have we really achieved those goals yet? Not yet. I would say where in the next 12 months, we'll see some really interesting use cases in that space.
I feel like this is one that people are going to have a little bit of an allergic reaction to because every conversation we are in, people are still talking about reducing cost. And so categorically, that is still a conversation that is happening. I think here it's just a little bit of a nuance. Yeah. The reducing cost is more about reducing the waste. So let's not spend on technology that's not actually being used or not delivering value to the business. Let's not throw people at problems that we don't need to solve. Yeah. Where the nuance is shifting is, to your point, we know we're going to grow. So how do we create capacity to innovate, to bring new products to market, to accelerate bringing products to market? There's always going to be cost out conversation, but it's not just about taking cost out.
But I think it's also, there's the ability just to drive continuous improvement, actually accelerate the business. But we're not able to do that because we're so tied down in the existing practices. So if we can free people up and they can start solving the problems, we're going to create a whole lot of new capacity. And this is where some of the stuff like Gen AI is really interesting. And again, this customer yesterday, just case summarization. How many people, type, we finished the case and we just type resolved or closed. well, actually, now we can get something meaningful. That means we are able to get more knowledge into the organization, means the next time we're having the same conversation with our employees or customer, we've actually got real information we can use. That, in my mind, is really interesting about how do we get more capacity back in the organizations through very simple capability.
So has capacity become the new currency for innovation then?
In my mind, yeah. I think, and with the advent of the sort of, the ability to write code and build applications. And so David 30 was talking about this recently with a board. They basically forced the board members, forced is a strong word, got the board members.
So did they use golf clubs?
Well, I don't know about golf clubs, but they got them to build live websites through effectively.
The board built live websites.
Yeah. So David built a board.
That's impressive.
Yeah, exactly right. So if you can get board members thinking that way, we can certainly get employees doing it. They don't, and we don't need to have that digital skills because the new tools are allowing us to do it in a very different way.
So are we going to run agentic building workshops for boards now? That sounds like fun.
It could be
on the golf course.
On the golf course,
over a glass of champagne.
Done. Deal.
So now we're talking.
Topic 3.
Well, no, before we go on to topic 3, because this is one of my, so I'm not a massive fan of PowerPoint slides, but there are a handful that you and I use on a regular basis. And one of them is one of my all-time favorite slides that ties in perfectly to this shift from cost to capacity. And that is the fact that over the last 4 years, ServiceNow has doubled the size of the employees. Yes. We've doubled the size of our revenue in our business. So we have grown at incredible pace. And yet the headcount supporting our IT and HR service teams has remained stable. And the reason we've been able to grow our company at that rate and not throwing people at the problem is because at every step of the way, we've used automation, then machine learning, then AI, and now into agentic to create that capacity and unlock the ability to scale. And for me, whenever we talk about that shift from cost to capacity and creating capacity to scale, I think we are probably one of the best examples in the market.
Yeah, I think it's very true. And everyone does love that slide. But it only comes from the fact that we've had a relentless focus on automation. We are single-mindedly focused about how every time we look at it, where's the opportunity to automate? And I think that mindset for businesses is really important if we're going to achieve that outcome.
And the fact that we're never done. It's continually looking for ways in which we can create more capacity or do it better, smarter, faster.
Yeah, it's like the old CMDBs. They're never perfect, all right? But you've got to have the processes in place and you've got to have the mindset of how do we continue to evolve these things. And I think if you bring that at the same level into automation, then I think we can get very different outcomes.
Can't believe you just used CMDB in this podcast.
You can cut it out.
I don't cut anything out. You know this. All right. Number 3, mindset shift number 3, yes. From siloed thinking to service-led. So this this challenge that we had over a good couple of decades where every business unit went out and built a platform, an application to help them do their function. So finance got one, payroll got one, everyone wanted their own. Yep. And we almost used technology to cement these silos. Whereas now people are really shifting to how do we break down those silos from a people, process, technology perspective and think about the end-to-end service, whether it's hire to retire, whether it's procure to pay, and really driving that service-led mindset shift for every decision they make?
I think there was this other concept of sort of the golden thread through an organization. Everyone has a part to play in ensuring a plane gets away or that someone gets paid on time. It's never just one person's job and it always crosses the organizational boundaries. And I think having that back to that mindset of what's the end outcome and working out each person's involvement and the organization's involvement, that stuff for me is really exciting. So I think, but organizations continue to struggle because, the technology sort of silos that you were just talking about, came on the back of, we probably did a big ERP type implementation. We had a set of goals. We didn't really achieve all of the outcomes. So then businesses and tech organizations were then having to go and build out, shadow IT functions or new technologies to try and fill those gaps. And now we've got this very shadow sort of landscape of applications everywhere.
2 of the industries that I've seen really leading the way in this shift, one is banking, probably because they had to, because customers could see the messy middle was being exposed. So when customers were trying to get help, they could see the friction in the workplace in trying to get an answer or trying to get a home loan approved. And so I think banks are almost forced to go down this service-led thinking path. But now they're very much leading the way. And it's not just in anything related to customer. They've really pushed the boundaries in terms of corporate services or GBS or whatever you want to refer to it as. But how do you break down those barriers and deliver on service? The second industry that I found is really pushing the boundaries on this is university sector, which I know is a big passion of both of us. But the way in which they are embracing student services and the student experience, and even simple things like, when a student needs assistance, why do we wait for them to come and try and find out which website they have to go to put in a form to get dispensation for something, right?
Yeah.
Let's proactively reach out to them because we know there is a power outage during an exam and they shouldn't have to go and fill out a form. They should be able to just opt in to getting that. So, they're the two industries that I've seen sort of leading the way in this space.
Yeah, universities are fascinating at the moment because they've all been on the back of COVID, changes in, international students. There's a real shift happening in universities are having to think about how do we actually optimize the experience because they're having to fight for the students more than they've ever done.
And they've also been doubly disrupted by AI because the way in which they use it internally, but the way in which students use it to learn, so therefore teachers have to use it to teach. Like, it's just like the double whammy going on.
Yeah, like if a student submits the paper, was it written by AI or was it done by the student? So where was the additional thought process and how do you validate that? But you can't not do it either because everybody's, we both got kids sitting HSCs. We know exactly that they're using ChatGPT to help accelerate and get themselves ready for those exams. Well, and we're using it just to help educate ourselves so we can catch up again. But I do like the universities, they are really thinking about shared services in a fundamentally new way. And we've seen, if I think about Griffith, they didn't start in technology. They started with sort of, corporate services, which is shifting for us from ServiceNow always having to start in IT to now actually starting to, on the business side of the equation to actually make it easier for people.
So then the fourth mindset shift that you talked about was this, and I think this is more of a newer one. It was this shift from generalized skills to contextualized skills. And I think this has really come to the forefront in the case of AI. And the way that I explain this one to people is, something terrible is going to come out of my mouth.
I'm not sure.
You're laughing already.
I might get one of these red flags.
My butcher is really good with a knife. I'm not going to ask him to do open heart surgery.
No.
So why do we have this? Why did we, 2 years ago, everyone was like, I'm going to build an AI model to do everything. Why? Where did that come from?
I think we were just all learning. Like when the models first came out, we didn't really know what they were going to do. When was it? October 22 or November 22 when it started? I think I was
specifically generative AI.
Generative AI. Correct.
We are using slang here.
Yeah, I joined ServiceNow in October 22. A month later, ChatGPT launched, and everyone went, "That's the new kid on the block. But we were all trying to understand it. And I think what we've now seen is this shift to more domain-specific models are much more targeted to, whether it's HR or finance or into workflows. So that shift for me, I think, is sort of adding context to the models has become really important because that's in two parts. One, removing the hallucinations or this thing seems to have wandered off track.
Which is more common in a generalized model because it's not trained to be domain-specific.
Yeah. And the fact that now we are getting into the models and having the reasoning capability, so they are learning very, very quickly and picking up on the mistakes. And now you're sort of seeing two models being played off against each other. I was probably 4 months ago using ChatGPT all the time. Now every day I'm using Perplexity because the model's more advanced. And so you have to have this mindset that you're going to think and move across these on a regular basis.
I do love that. Obviously internally we have My Assist, which is our implementation of Now Assist. And I do love that even as an employee, when we ask a question of Now Assist, we can specify whether we want it to use ServiceNow's AI model behind it or whether to use GPT or whether to use anything else. And so I think it's also making just the general employee base more aware that there are good models or different models for different problems to solve.
And I think it's allowing people just to, I think the biggest thing is you actually just got to let people try. I was at a panel about a week and a half ago and we asked the audience how many people are using ChatGPT and they went, yep, all doing it. And we went, okay, I suspect most of you are just using it as an advanced search tool. And they all went, yep. Okay, well, actually, you got to think about is how am I prompting this engine to actually think quite differently. And, there's this interesting piece at the moment, which is we're talking about failures. All right.
I don't know anything about that, Pete. I never fail anything.
No, that's true. That's why we're on a golf course. But when I think about like my tolerance level, we make mistakes, but our tolerance level for that is high. And we then think about feedback and coaching and what that needs to look, and that goes both ways. But when an AI fails and gets it wrong, our trust level is much lower. We immediately go, oh, well, it can't be right, and so we dismiss it. Versus what we should be thinking about is actually I can coach the engine because it'll actually then learn and get a better response. So we've got to stop thinking of this as a tool, and we've got to actually really start thinking about how am I working with AI.
And I think this is one that's going to continue to evolve because when we move more and more into agentic, and particularly agents talking to agents, the ability for ServiceNow to hand off to a Microsoft agent because Microsoft, is better at creating PowerPoints, or handing off to an SAP agent because SAP knows the P&L better than ServiceNow will. Like that ability to really deploy the right agent for the job and for those agents to coordinate, I think that's a really exciting place to get to.
Well, it's exciting, but it's also hard for the people to understand. Like, again, if you think about it from a personal perspective, how am I going to have faith that this invisible entity, effectively, this digital FTE is going to be there first thing in the morning and tell me the things that are most important to work on. And I have to think about performance management of it. I have to think about coaching of it. I got to think about onboarding this capability into my organization. So that's a really big mindset shift. But you go back to sort of productivity. You think about capacity. To have this thing running 24/7 and be able to do those things, and you're now just driving the actions on top and making the difficult decisions, it's got to be freeing up from spending hours searching through your email.
So if we took away anything from World Forum, I think it's definitely that transformation's not a project that you run, that there is clearly a series of changes that have to happen in the organization, 4 of which we've just talked about, the mindset shifts. So to sum it up, we obviously talked about from external to employee, the shift from cost to capacity, the shift from siloed thinking to service-led, and then finally the shift from general skills to contextual.
Great summary. You did very well.
My job is done.
It is.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Oh, so look, then you started Fed. We had Fed Forum, World Forum, massive amount of excitement, but people are really still looking for how do I get started in some of these cases. And I think what we saw from that, and that's what I love those events so much, is our customers telling their stories about what they're doing, how they're achieving impact and results. It's not us, though we have our Now on Now story. But I think hearing from, the likes of ANZs, the Origos, the Rios, and what they're doing makes a phenomenal difference to give people faith that this is actually real and can be done. But what were your takeaways, Kat? I know you summed up very well.
Well, I think just my final takeaway is just if you're still stuck in those old ways of thinking, this is your official intervention.
Yeah. You've got to get on the train now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing. Great golf course. Thanks so much.
No worries.